Well, hello to all of our Motley Fool members. We're so happy to be able to spend this time together talking about a wonderful company in the public markets that's served us well as investors thus far, and that is Zscaler, a cloud security company that protects people and applications without using traditional firewalls or VPNs. So Zscaler's applications sit between an individual user and the internet, or a company's applications, that make sure every connection is safe in a zero trust exchange. The company has a market capitalization of about $39 billion today, which is around 7 times higher than when it came public about 7 years ago. And we know those numbers pretty well because at Motley Fool and Hidden Gems, we first recommended Zscaler back in 2018, around $38 and $35 a share. We've made more than 50 recommendations of Zscaler over those 7 years. We have never sold a share, which is not unusual for us at the Motley Fool. We really like to focus on the long-term business performance and invest accordingly. But those returns since coming public are about 30% a year, and that's market beating fantastically so. We get the pleasure of spending the next hour with the company's founder and CEO, Jay Chaudhry, who has spent time with fools in the past. And Jay, I wanted to start with a surprise question. What was the first moment in your life when you realized you wanted to start a company? I know that you have started, I believe, 5 companies, so you can talk about also when you decided to start Zscaler, but the origin of entrepreneurship for you, where did it come from?
Many people plan entrepreneurship. They have a journey, they have a plan. For me, I may call it, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. Having been born and raised in a tiny village in the foot of the Himalayas in northern India, without electricity, without water, so I had no idea what companies and entrepreneurship is. But I was always a hard-working, good student, got into engineering, and came to the US to do my master's. So I thought I'll be a software engineer for most of my life, like most engineers. The first time I got into entrepreneurship was sitting in Atlanta, reading about this company called Netscape that had just gone public around 95, 96 timeframe, and reading about this young chap, Mark Andreessen, and said, wow, this young guy is starting a company that's going to change the world, where you could access information using a standard browser, no special software. That should be very powerful because it's wonderful. But then I said, if that happens, everyone connects to the internet, which means someone has to worry about security, cyber security. And that may be an opportunity. And then talking to my wife, I was saying, if this young guy could do a startup, why shouldn't I do a startup? Was the first time idea coming out of nowhere. And it just built upon it. And that's how I moved away from being a business leader in a corporate world, corporate America, to be a startup guy.
And you started your first company then, but you have a list of successful businesses you started before beginning Zscaler. Maybe just a quick walking tour of those, and then why, when you arrived at Zscaler, did you say, this one, I believe you said, this one is forever?
That's right. So the first company was Secure IT. And for that company, I failed to raise VC funding because I had no experience in any startup world. And since I got passionate about it, so my wife and I talked, we put a life savings on the line to get the company started, to make it more exciting. And my wife quit her job, so there's no turning back, burn the bridges behind, was the notion. The company took off. We are very focused. We're very good at what we're doing. So the business took off. That company got acquired in less than 2 years. And everything went so well. And I said, wow, startups are supposed to be hard. This was easy. This must be a fluke. So let's do it again. And also, you want a bigger challenge in life. And then we said, this time we do not need to talk to any VC. In fact, I said we could only put so much money in one startup, so we should do multiple startups, but do them like having kids. You stagger them 1 or 2 years apart. So we ended up starting 3 companies. One, e-procurement ASP using Ariba software that is precursor to SaaS, single tenant application software provider, an email security company called Cipher Trust, and a wireless security company called Air Defense. Good luck, good timing, great teams. They all became successful and eventually got acquired by large companies. That took me to 2007, 2008 timeframe. At this stage, I had no interest in doing one more startup and selling it. I want to do something big, something lasting. And that's where I was looking for what could be the long-term opportunity where we could build a business. And that's where the ideas of Zscaler came in. Sometimes I got told, gee, how did you come up with that idea? Must be some very creative thing. Not really. It was fairly common sense. If you think about 2007, 2008, internet was a big source of information. Okay? And I have been using Salesforce and NetSuite since year 2001, when each of them was under $10 million in annual sales. But I had used them. I thought SaaS is the way to go. SaaS should take off. And then AWS had just launched infrastructure as a service, compute as a service, storage as a service, which made so much sense. Because why not do compute as a service? And then Apple had just launched iPhone with a big screen. And I said, if we all become mobile and applications are everywhere, where all are you going to keep on building these moats with firewalls? It'll be a crazy idea. So let's think outside the box. Let's kind of flip the security thing on its head and not do firewall and build something totally different, like a switchboard, a policy engine, where everyone's untrusted. The network is merely the transport. You don't do network security. Those were some of the ideas we thought of, and that's how Zscaler was born.
For somebody who's not deeply knowledgeable about cybersecurity, can you just explain that shift from firewall?
Yes.
Explain what a firewall is, explain VPN, and why Zscaler's view was unique and innovative.
Absolutely. So the firewall-based security is generally called castle and moat security. If you need to protect your castle, what do? You build a moat around it so bad guys can't come in, and then there's one place to get in, and that's the moat has a special door, and they check you before they let you in. And once you're in, you're supposed to be a trusted good party. Okay. Now that model worked fine for the traditional world of computers. Here's your data center, and here are some devices sitting there, and you have a network connecting them, and you want to make sure that if you connect to the internet, the moat is a firewall. It's like a door. It's like a gate keeping the data center safe. And then you had to move to 50 offices. Now you're connecting your data center to 50 offices. It's almost like you had a big castle. Then you have 50 small castles. Then you connect the big castle to 50 small castles through tunnels. Okay. But once somebody gets inside the castle, they can reach everywhere. That's the problem of the network security, firewall security model. You're in, you can cause lots of havoc. Now, what firewalls tried to do was, oh, if you're worried about that, why don't I create more walls? I have wall here, wall here, wall here, wall here. I'll sell you lots of firewalls. It creates a big problem, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. That's the model I was familiar with. In my first startup, Secure IT, I was actually designing, architecting, selling, supporting firewalls. And I'd seen all the limitations of it. That's why I wanted to bring disruptive idea. Also, I'm a big fan of reading about technological changes. I've always believed that technology incrementally changes all the time. But every decade or every 2 decades, there's a step function change. That's what drives innovation. That's what drives business productivity. Give you a couple of examples. There used to be an analog world, which did pretty good. Then we had to shift to digital world, digital technology, much better, much cleaner. In the world of software, we used to have application in our data center from vendors like Siebel Systems and the like. Then came Salesforce. It says, why do you have to keep on worrying about buying servers, deploying all this stuff? Connect to me like a utility service and use it. So those are step function changes. When I looked at the world of IT, I said applications are changing, but nothing has changed the world of cybersecurity. Same old 30-year-old firewall technology. We need to do things differently. Let's not trust anyone. At the end of the day, users need to access applications. How do they make sure the right person can have access to right applications? So I thought of a simple metaphor, an old school phone switchboard. Years ago, if you wanted to talk to John, you called the switchboard and said, please connect me to John. You are connected. You had a great conversation. Then you said, oh, I want to talk to the president of the US. The switchboard said, sorry, you're not allowed to. Go away. It's really connecting the right party to right party. Such a simple, elegant architecture. I like simplicity and innovations. The way I also thought was the service should be simple. We all used to love DVD players. You recall those DVD players? They were wonderful. And then Netflix came around and say, move over. You simply click on a button. You get what you want. That's the kind of service I envision for Zscaler.
I still have the DVD player, Jay. I'm sorry.
Yes, I have it in my museum room.
That was wonderful. I didn't know that. I'm kind of ashamed I didn't do more homework before this meeting, Jay. But that's very impressive. Jumping ahead to today's challenges. These days, everything is in tech is like 99% AI. Some of the stuff that as a CTO keeps me up was one article specific regarding Anthropic, where they had an AI orchestrated cyber attack that they thwarted, right?
Yep.
So the new innovative techniques, AI is amazing for innovation. It's helped the Motley Fool tremendously, helps so many companies that we're looking at, but it also creates brand new threats that did not exist a year ago. How does that play into some of the things that Zscaler is doing these days?
Yeah. So I have often said AI is wonderful, AI is powerful, AI is dangerous. Okay? It's almost like any new technology. A knife in the kitchen is a wonderful tool unless it's abused. So here are some of the bad things AI can do that makes it very hard for companies to protect themselves. When an attacker attacks, they find a target. It's like a bank robber has to find which of the 500 branches do I want to break in, so they can break in without getting caught. In the cyber world, they find our public IP, my firewall, my VPN, my application portal. It used to take weeks for hackers to find some of those cyber targets for your company. Now you can submit the query to ChatGPT, and it can give you a beautiful tabular format of all the firewalls with vulnerabilities in them. Makes it so much easier. And then often people will do phishing emails. And those emails sometimes could be typos, missing spellings coming from Nigeria or wherever. Now ChatGPT can do beautiful phishing email with the writing style of your CFO and coming from your CFO. That's hard, makes it hard. 3, once the bad guys get on your corporate network using stolen credential with VPN or something like that, now you can use automation of AI. And AI automation can allow you to find mission-critical applications, encrypt them, or do whatever needs to be done and ask for ransom. The Anthropic attack you talked about, it's essentially literally hijacking an agent. Okay. Agents are somewhat like people. People have been the weakest link. I believe in future, agents will be much weaker link because the code can be changed, things can be hijacked, and no agent on your network has access to all kind of applications. They can try to do bad things. And the zero trust architecture we pioneered at Zscaler actually plays an important role. The zero trust architecture, as I described, the switchboard says, everything is an island, everything is untrusted. You come to a checkpost, you get connected to the right party. If enterprises embrace zero trust architecture, these hijacked agents or users whose credentials have been stolen, they won't be able to get past maybe a given application beyond that. So it's fundamentally very powerful architecture to safely embrace AI security. And there are other aspects of it, but starting with a zero trust where agents are only trusted for a given amount of time to do certain tasks and no more is the right way to do these things.
That's wonderful. Jay, thanks very much, and I really appreciate your castle and moat analogy there. I always like to call it M&M security as well. It's relatively the same thing, right? And in regards to your talking about the differentiations and things that'll separate you out, I'm really curious and interested in your recent acquisition of Splex and then the Entra Agent ID that you've been working with as a partnership. So essentially, you're covering the entire AI lifecycle from build to runtime. How do you see this end-to-end approach differentiating Zscaler from competitors who are trying to solve pieces of this problem? And what's the integration timeline for customers who want to use this as a unifying platform rather than separate tools?
Yeah, that's a very good question because our customers want to embrace AI, use AI, but they're all nervous. They want to do it securely. There are a bunch of new startups all pitching their point products, and some of the large companies who have bought some other companies' acquisition here and there, but lacking integration. So what have we done? First of all, Zscaler pioneered Zero Trust Exchange for users. Then we took it to cloud workloads, so workloads can talk to other workloads in a Zero Trust fashion. And then we made Zero Trust branches, where each branch is like an island, like a cafe. So one infected machine branch can infect others. And now we are extending our exchange for agents. We call it agentic exchange. Any agent being able to talk to any application service will go through our exchange, where we're going to start with authentication, identity, authorization, and a few other checks to make the right connection, which is natural for us to do as we do exchange for users. We want to do it for agents. Important. Now, the second question there ends up being, if you want to do it, who provides identity of these agents? Each agent must have identity. People can start by assigning users identity to agent, but it's not enough. Users are trickier than agents because, agents are trickier than users because code can change easily. So what we've done is the following. We want to be the broker who is going to get identity of agents from different parties. Microsoft is very focused on creating agents and their identity. Our exchange can make calls to Microsoft and get the identity verification. Google wants to do its own agents. AWS, Salesforce, ServiceNow. We want to get the right identity, check things, and then make the connection. That is our partnership with Microsoft. We have been working with Entra ID for this agent authentication for quite some time. So this is about zero trust agentic communication. There's a second part of AI security. In large companies, different users and departments are buying AI applications and services and deploying them. So CIOs and CISOs are worried about what's being bought, or some of the stuff could leak their data and could cause other issues. So they want to start with AI application discovery and the risk associated with it. Zscaler built applications that are available to our customers to identify what they have. That's point number one. Point number two, they're building their own models and applications, either in the data centers or in the public cloud. As they build them, they want to understand vulnerabilities, weaknesses of those applications that bad guys can exploit. In the AI world, it's called red teaming, which is a fancy term for pen testing application. We bought Splex, SPLX, because they had one of the most mature applications for red teaming. Then the next thing, you deploy those applications will be used by some users, maybe your employees, maybe customers, maybe by agents. How do you make sure somebody doesn't do bad things with those applications? What could be the bad things? Well, when you submit a prompt, you can play with things and cause prompt rejections. You could do data poisoning. So we're sitting in line like a proxy. We are inspecting every prompt. We are looking for prompts for any cyber issues, any data loss issues, or acceptable use. What is acceptable use? Somebody could be asking questions to say, give me the list of bad things about the product you're selling me. Okay. I mean, those are not good prompts to be accepted. So the customers can define a policy, we check the stuff. If prompt is acceptable, let it go. The response comes back. We inspect the response to make sure it's a reasonable response. And the results are not really, really bad. We're seeing some examples where somebody said, how do I commit a suicide? I mean, that answer shouldn't be given. Okay. Those are the kind of guardrails we provide. So when you can you can provide full end-to-end visibility to testing of application and securely running it, it becomes a powerful thing, and that's what we offer, and that's what sets us apart from others.
That's wonderful. And yeah, you've just touched on a lot of things that just keep me awake at night. And it's wonderful to hear that we've got it going in that direction. One thing that you did mention is your partnership with Microsoft and Entra ID. Is there any scope of like branching partnerships out to other companies like Okta in the future, Auth0, any of the other authentication groups?
Of course. The same thing we did with Zscaler Zero Trust users. Today, with over 55 million users and doing over 500 billion transactions every day, we check identity, either Microsoft for users in the Entra ID, or Okta, or Ping, or SailPoint. We are the Switzerland who wants to take identity from any identity provider and securely connect to any application or service. Could be on a hyperscaler A or B, could be a SaaS provider, could be open internet, or could be your application or data center. That's the beautiful place we sit in. And it's the same thing will carry on with agents as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Jay, thank you for that. I want to pivot a little bit towards just the selling environment as you're looking at the market and talking to CTOs and CEOs and CFOs in the market. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing from length of cycles, questions they're asking, demands that they're looking for, anything that gives us some sense into how Zscaler is evolving with the changing market of the purchase process.
Mm-hmm. So CIOs and CTOs are finding that IT is playing more and more important and pivotal role. The cloud adoption happened to be able to build and deploy application faster to get value out of it, being able to analyze those data signals they're creating. And now AI is further turbocharging it. They all want to build AI-powered applications. But they're scared. Even before AI, they're worried about ransomware attacks that are happening left and right. And that's really what gave Zscaler a big push, because the traditional firewalls couldn't really help. You know, I sometimes talk to CISOs and they say, assume you are already breached. I said, man, we're spending so much money on these technologies. What do you mean you are breached? That's a defeatist attitude. But then they say it's practical because my network is so far flung. There's something breached somewhere. And that's how they're moving to zero trust architecture. That's one piece. But AI is making them worried further. But in the selling environment, there's tightness, there's deal scrutiny. And often CIOs and CTOs are asked to reduce their budget, sometimes 5%, sometimes 10%, and sometimes 15%. The cyber budgets are actually pretty stable and have gone up to some degree. When I have conversations with CIOs or CISOs, there are two things that get them moving to engage with us. Number one, can you improve my cyber posture? Especially with AI, I'm more concerned even though I was concerned before. And that gets them going. But number two, if you can do it without costing a fortune, and if we can take a number of point products out and save me a lot of money, then I can get the deal done. In IT, lots of vendors claim ROI and TCO, but very few companies actually save tangible money. Even in the SaaS world, a SaaS provider goes in and says, remove the old stuff. You're going to do customization for 18 months, and I'll give you better productivity. And yes, it delivers productivity, but nothing for 18 months. In the world of Zscaler, you go in and say, Mr. Customer, you're spending $15 million on these firewalls, VPNs, and other related network security products, and you're spending $30 million on this network. And the network is like private roads. Now, internet has become the cyber highway. Most of the network costs should go away. So if you do 30 million on network, 15 on firewall rates, that's $45 million. With Zscaler World, I can comfortably go and tell them without knowing their exact environment. Then in about 18 to 24 months, I can reduce it by a third to 40%. I mean, that's significant savings. That's because I don't have to worry about the cannibalizations of firewalls and routers and switches. Every office simply connects to the internet. We are the policy engine. We connect things to things. Lots of these products can be taken out. So when I do this stuff, we create a business case study, our deals gets done. That's why we're able to deliver some great numbers. You've seen us. Our ARR growth was 26% year over year. Our revenue growth was 26%. We had a strong billings growth. Our cash flow, net cash flow margin is in the 52% range. We beat all metrics from all sides. And this is because our customers are getting great benefits from us.
Thank you, Jay. I'm going to have to negotiate a lower rate on our Zscaler contract. Our sales rep at Zscaler will be hearing from me tomorrow. Sorry.
If I may say, it's not just negotiating a little smaller. Whatever you're asking me, I'll tell you, we can probably save 5 times more because there's so much old stuff that's sitting in your enterprise.
I agree. You have saved us a bunch. So I was always have to negotiate. Sorry.
Sure.
Let me ask you with regards to some of the AI red teaming services that are out there. So AWS launched their Frontier Security Agent. OpenAI has got their Aardvark. Is that how you pronounce it? Aardvark in beta right now. There's a couple others. How do you see them? How do you see Zscaler in the current environment?
Yeah. So look, there's a bunch of services customer will have. Some of them have big barrier to entry because of intellectual property. Some will have small barriers to entry. Zero Trust Exchange for agents I'm talking about is a significant barrier to entry, and it'll be hard to have real competition there. Red teaming is a good technology, but I don't think over time anyone will have big differentiation in red teaming service. They'll have similar functionality. Our positioning will be, I can do red teaming for any of the applications that are being built on any of the environment. So we become the Switzerland there. And some of these other providers, they'll always have better stuff for their own models and services, and not that optimal for others. So yeah, there'll be lots of red teaming providers. Our solution, well, two things, serving everyone being one. And we are essentially making sure it works well for all the parties as a third-party neutral company.
Thank you.
Jeff was telling me that when we switched from our prior provider, we saved 50 to 60% on our Zscaler solution with much less overhead afterwards as well. So how do you change your pricing model or subscription model in a world where companies hire fewer people and you're in a seat license subscription model? I'm curious. That's also a backdoor way of asking you what you think the future of employment looks like with the unbelievable exponential pace of upgrade and deployment of AI and agents completing tasks, with high human IQ equivalent.
It's a very good question. So first of all, while Zscaler pricing is largely for users, user-based, there are already many variations we had to evolve over time. Ideally, I would like to charge based on consumption because the traffic keeps on going up. Okay, but CIOs want predictable revenue, so they wanted to do user pricing based on number of users for employees. But many of them have third-party contractors and others who come and go. Today, their pricing is not based on user count. It's based on the transaction volume. We have offerings, what we call zero trust for workloads, when workloads should talk to each other or workloads talk to internet. That pricing is based on how much traffic is going through. So we're already used to doing that. In case of AI agents, that number is going to keep on growing. And that pricing will be based on combination of number of agents and how much traffic is coming from those agents. So we are already used to how pricing should be done. It's really not a big change for us. Your second question was employment, number of users going down. Now, none of us have a crystal ball, but we're already seeing that the number of new employees being added has slowed down in most companies. We are seeing the benefit of AI in our own company for customer support, for software development, and the like. So even if the user count slows down, the more user count slows down, probably the more agentic count is going to go up. There will be more and more communication among workloads, agents, all these stuff. We sit between the workloads to workloads, agents to workloads. We think that security becomes extremely important, and we have a critical role to play for that.
I think I'm going to turn philosophical here, but perhaps also because of your remarkable life story, not even dreaming that you would be a software engineer in your earliest childhood years, or maybe even having access to that technology if you didn't have electricity and running water in the early years of your life. I guess I'm going to ask a philosophical question about what you think will happen with employment. We don't have a crystal ball, but almost reaching outside of Zscaler's business for a moment and just thinking, what does the next generation do for jobs, or what does a mid-career employee who isn't advancing their skills with AI tooling rapidly enough, what does that future look like for you?
Yeah, if you think about the past, we learned from the past. Every time new technology came, there are people who felt like lots of jobs will go away. When spreadsheets came around, people thought that, man, all these accounting people will have no future. Okay, it was all wrong. I do believe AI is going to create lots and lots of new jobs, but every time technology has come, it needed better skills for people to do a better job or to have a better job. So my advice to people will be embrace AI, learn skill set, because it's going to create a whole range of new jobs. While everyone is fascinated by AI technology, it's still non-deterministic. Okay. It's probabilistic. There are many, many jobs where non-deterministic is not good enough for many areas. So somebody needs to validate all that stuff has to be done. So I am always an optimist. I think technology has always created newer opportunities. I think AI will create new opportunities. But people who are really learning better, doing a better job, will do better. So I encourage people to say, embrace AI, learn about it, and that's going to create a better future for them.
Jay, in regards to the technology, a lot of what Zscaler does is fundamentally dependent upon inspecting all traffic and at scale. And obviously, you're trying to do that without degrading user experience. And so if you're processing over 500 billion transactions daily, and technically in the past, the security appliances were seeing a 50 to 60% performance degradation. How does Zscaler go about combating that so the user experience stays strong no matter where they're at?
Right. So really, that's where our secret sauce comes in for optimization of software. In fact, we are one of the small number of companies that wrote our own TCP/IP networking stack to get throughput and performance. If I were to give you an example of the airport, when people go through it, there could be long lines, okay? But then you come up with better inspection technology. Remember at the airport, they would check you after 9/11, all the way, line will be there. Things got better inspection, you go through the stuff, it picks it up. The core technology is how do you do it at a speed without slowing it down? That's not easy to do. The name Zscaler stands for Zenith of Scalability. We want to be able to scale without slowing down. Our average transaction that goes through our checkpost introduces less than 1 millisecond of latency. That's very powerful. That's why people tell me that when the traffic goes through Zscaler, many times it goes faster than without Zscaler because it's designed to take an optimal path and all that stuff. Very proud of our customers talk about the user experience with Zscaler.
Jay, can you talk a little bit about Zflex, the success you've had? Why did you introduce it, and what does it bring to the market?
So Zflex is a program we created to make procurement flexible as we have more and more products available. Customers want the flexibility and choice. I give you a simple example of data security. We used to have 2 products, 2 modules for data security. Now we have 8 of them because data is sitting everywhere. It's getting complicated. Endpoint, your email, to S3 bucket, to SaaS, everywhere. So many times customers say, I can afford 4 modules this year and probably 2 next year. But I'm not sure which 4 do I really need. I'm going to go through a long period of testing to decide. And Zflex says, you can pick the number of modules you want, and you can swap them if you want. Okay? And then if you think you need 2 next year, we can stagger it, and we'll start charging those 2 next year as well. So it gives you flexible starting price, ability to swap, and we have a rate card they can use for buying additional stuff. So the effort of going back through procurement cycles slows down. They have flexibility, and deals can be done faster. That's really how Zflex is helping our customers.
And Jay, why did it take? It seems like a natural progression. Why did it take so much time to kind of implement, to come to the market? What hurdles did you have to overcome before you introduced it into the market?
Yeah, there are really no hurdles. It evolves slowly. If you ask me, we have been doing portions of it for the last several years. Customers, when they said, I want to bring 100,000 users on Zscaler, but I can only do 30,000 in Q1, 30 Q2. So in the past, each customer requested us. It went through approval process to really do stagger ramped deployment. Or they say, I want to do product 2 here, 2 there. That was part of one-off approvals, and that volume was picking up. So looking at that, some of this stuff is coming from many parts of the customer side of it. So we created a program which simplifies it, and all these approval processes get simplified.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump into the weeds a bit because it was actually a conversation we had at the Motley Fool about a week ago regarding prompt injection, right? So we have various different capabilities, internal, external. We have a request from our colleagues to use some of the new AI browsers. We have some malicious sites out there. We've been wanting to deploy an AI bot. In fact, we had one ready for production over a year and a half ago. But prompt injection was a concern. Can you give us some examples on how Zscaler deals with that, I guess, threat opportunity?
So to deal with it, you need to analyze what the prompt is like. Okay? For example, in some of these cases, you could be talking and there's certain things in place. You say, what controls are in place? You could tell your AI service, ignore all these commands that are given to us. Bypass it. So you're bypassing some of the controls, being able to do it. Now, what we analyze is, what are the kind of things these guys could do for a given service for prompt injections? It's our job as a middle thing in the middle to make sure those prompts are ignored or declined. So inspection of the prompt, what it's trying to do with the right context is really what we look at to make sure prompt injection doesn't happen.
A bit of a lighthearted.
It needs to be done at a fast speed. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be analyzed at fast speed.
A bit of a lighthearted question, then a question about the business that you're running. My lighthearted question, well, it's quite serious for many people. What recommendations would you have, given your expertise in this domain, for the average person with regard to their own security in the era of rising new technologies? What should somebody be doing in their home that they're not yet doing?
So number one risk a consumer at home has is phishing. With phishing, they steal your credentials. So they can go and steal your money from your bank. Okay? That's probably the biggest risk for an average consumer. So one should be mindful of what they're clicking in and what not, though it's hard on the mobile phone. It's hard to even see the URL. So good to have some level of software protection for phishing, and a number of these software available to make sure your endpoint is safe. That's the number one thing you do. Number two, I think being a little bit savvy to look for some of the things that look silly out there and not fall for them. Just using a little common sense goes a long way. But it's a lot easier than some of the stuff we deal with at enterprise. At enterprises, things are highly targeted. Nation states are coming after you. Consumers aren't really targeted those big things, but they are target of phishing, so they can go and get your money. And phishing is the most common thing for that.
One of the things that when talking to investors and our members of the Motley Fool, try to have members see, I'll express it 2 ways. One, that I believe mathematically the truth is that if the average investor doubled their average holding period, they would get better returns. Even if they'll have some losers in their portfolio, but simply by the act of doubling their holding period, it aligned them more with the business. Obviously, it's more tax advantage, and there are many other reasons to do so. But when I look at what you've created at Zscaler, and obviously the company came public in 2018, and I mentioned it's up 7 times in the 7 years. When I run my numbers on the business, and I know you can't comment on this, I believe Zscaler could deliver 15% a year for the next 10 years. I think you'd be one of those defining companies for this era. And I'm wondering how you think about time horizon. You know, there are institutions coming and talking to you on quarterly reports about your operating margins. There's, the pressure to be ready to report every 90 days. You've obviously mastered that in 7 years. But I think many investors would be interested to hear, what is the time horizon of the CEO, and how do you think stakeholders of the company, whether they're employees, customers, shareholders, how should they think about their partnership with Zscaler to align them to the interests and the activities and the decision-making process of the CEO?
So first of all, I look at the opportunity starting with, how big is the market and how serious is the demand? Is this product needed? Is it vitamins or is it a painkiller? Okay. It's pretty obvious that cyber is needed badly. There's no such thing as, I can live without it. So that's number one thing for our market segment. Number two, is the market big enough or is the market small? The market has been growing at a pretty rapid pace. It's being disrupted. You can't even look at the segments you looked at 5 years ago. So when the market is massive and growing, this is a great opportunity. Then the third thing you look at is, does the company offer a compelling solution which has barrier to entry? With our global cloud bigger, with 55 some billion users, over 45% of Fortune 500 companies as our customers, we have proven track record. One of the things I'm very proud of, outside typical financial numbers, is our NPS, Net Promoter Score, has been sitting between 75 and 85 most of the time. That's remarkable. And NPS of a typical SaaS company generally sits in 30, 35 range. So that's being happy, smart customers. I'll give you a beautiful stat. About 9 months ago, one weekend, I was sitting at home looking at some of my travels, and I said, oh, I met this CISO, and he told me he's bought Zscaler the third time at his third company. And I got curious. I looked at my data and looked at large companies who I generally meet with. 285 of the CXOs had bought Zscaler 2 times. Company A, then they went to company B. 84 had bought it 3 times. 45 had bought it 4 times. And they keep on coming. They like us. So having a large customer base with a first mover advantage that we did is good for us. And then you look at, say, the evolving product set. We have evolved. And investor used to say, in 2018, oh, you got one product, Zscaler Internet Access. Oh, then private access came. Then digital experience came. They all became Zscaler for you, zero trust for users. Then we built it for cloud workloads, branches, IoT devices. The platform has been expanding. So we get no lack of market. I don't worry about competition. Our competition is all legacy stuff. My competition is generally inertia. We are changing the world. So we start with people who are progressive thought leaders. Then others are come along. So I think we have plenty of potential opportunities to grow. My role model has been ServiceNow. I've been working with ServiceNow. One of the board members of Service at Zscaler was the president of global sales, David Schneider. He has been a mentor and board member. Just like they have done a great job, we have a very big platform, and it's growing. So I think we have plenty of opportunities for the long run to keep on growing this business. And to me personally, Zscaler is not just a business. It's a mission. I mean, when you think about some of the big companies depend upon Zscaler so they can keep on doing the business. Wow, the feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of accomplishment is fantastic. And then people say, Jay, when are you retiring? So what do you mean retiring, man? I'm having so much fun. We are in the early stage. We have a lot to achieve. And let's go.
It's one of our favorite things to hear about the companies that we invest in is the CEO is ready to sit down and sign the next contract for the very long term. So Gasper is going to close us out. Thank you so much for this time, Gasper.
Thank you, Jay. I just want to say I wish I had another 3 hours with you. This has been amazing so far. I guess I'll ask the last one. So we're in an environment where nation states use cyber tools, we'll call it broadly, and engage in various forms of cyber influence within and to other nation states and even businesses. How does Zscaler see that playing out in the future?
Nation state doing cyber attacks will continue because it's a tool. It's like saying, will robbers ever go away? No, you need to protect yourself. And more online connectivity will encourage nation states to do things they want to do. The best security is that if something gets compromised, everything is an island in the world of zero trust. Remember when we talked about this company is compromised, the network is compromised? That means everything is connected to everything in the enterprise. That's a bad thing. These enterprise networks are like national highways. Once I get on Highway 18 San Francisco, I can reach New York, Miami, or Dallas without hitting a single light. It's so wonderful. But it's so wonderful for bad guys too. That's what happens to corporate networks. The biggest thing we can do is eliminate these wide area flat networks. Every office is an island. They go through a switchboard, connect things to things. And if nation state compromise one PC, that PC can only get to certain places. They can't get to everywhere. So last closing word in this area, embrace zero trust everywhere. Eliminate those firewalls and VPNs that give you false sense of security. And don't fall for the vendors who are hiding the word firewall and VPN, but spinning the same firewall and VPN in the cloud and calling them zero trust.
Well said, Jay. And you should know behind the scenes on Slack, Jeff, who has a lot of our decisions in how to expand our technology spend, has said, I think we need to go even broader with our solutions with Zscaler. So we're not only very thankful shareholders, we're very thankful customers of the solutions that you've created, the business that you've created, the culture that you've created, and the mission that you're on. And one of our favorite things, as we mentioned here in the end, is to find individuals and teams that have real skin in the game for the long term. And that's not just capital, although you have a very large ownership stake, which is very encouraging, always encouraging for us as investors, but that the individual's heart and soul are in the game as well with that entity. So there are a lot of people relying on you across your customer base and a lot of stakeholders that have been delighted over the first 7 years in the public markets. Thank you for sharing your story and your thoughts and your solutions and your view to the future. We enjoyed it so much, and we look forward to talking again in the future.
Tom and team, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.